What's up, everybody? Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of interesting stories to go over this week. But before I get into them, I first want to thank Roadster for sponsoring this video. Roadster is a new app for car enthusiasts that I've been using. It's got everything an enthusiast like you and me could want. But the main emphasis here is on connecting people locally. The most unique feature is this road sharing mode, which allows you to share your location so you can even meet up with people on the fly. You know, if you see another driver on your map there, you can signal a meetup and potentially make new friends, go for a cruise with some new enthusiasts you might not have known before. You can also find local events right on the built-in map. You can even upload cars in your virtual garage, share photos, post links to news articles and YouTube videos, and you can also form or join groups of any kind as well. And I'll be turning on my road sharing mode around the Pittsburgh area here once in a while, and also during the Road to SEMA trip coming up next month. And so be sure to download the app and definitely follow me at Matt Maran, especially if you're local, but also just follow me in general, just because if I'm out somewhere else in another state or something, I can turn that on and people can be notified that I'm nearby, you know, and can make it easier to do meetups and things like that in the future. Right, for the first news story this week here is during this first drive event that happened last week for the new Supra, there's been a bunch of interviews with the assistant chief engineer, Masayuki Kai, and so he's the assistant to Mr. Tada, who was the chief engineer, but this other Mr. Kai is much more talkative and gives some much more reasonable answers to a lot of the questions that have been asked here. And so several different interviews have given us several different news headlines about the Supra and other Toyota products here. The first, though, is Road and Track asked about the possibility of a manual here with the new Supra. That's the main thing everyone's been wanting very clearly. And their answer is still a little puzzling, but it still makes a little more sense. So Mr. Kai actually said that it purely depends on the reaction of the market in regards to whether they offer a manual or not. He continued that the hardware is ready because he says a manual needs to be sold in Japan. We hadn't heard that there was going to be a manual version for Japan only, but that's kind of what he's suggesting, is that's what their current thinking is we'll have a manual. It'll only be for Japan and maybe other right-hand drive markets, so Australia, UK possibly. But that would be it. He says, if, for example, U.S. customers are demanding strongly that Supra needs to be a manual transmission car, then we will plan it. But customers are already strongly demanding it. Look on any single Supra forum or Instagram post or YouTube video. Every single time I mention the Supra, I've had so many people that are actually like current Supra owners that are like, I want the new one, but only if it's a manual. Like actual buyers, people with money that are like, I will buy this if it's a manual. That is as clear of demand as I can possibly give Toyota. And I mean, I don't know how they're not hearing this. It's baffling to me. Anyway, so if they somehow get wind of demand for manuals, maybe they actually want, demand from dealers or something. I don't know. But if that happens, then they will plan it, they're saying. So it is encouraging, though. This is good news. Even if it is kind of puzzling, it's good news because it means they have the hardware developed already for a manual Supra, even though this chief engineer said that they couldn't do it because it wouldn't be smooth enough. So we got conflicting reports here. So take all this with a grain of salt still. Someone's, trying to confuse us. I don't know who, but, but if this is true, they have the hardware, which means they can do it. And switching it from a right-hand drive configuration to a left-hand drive is very simple, I think. And so hopefully that would be something they could work around and would be worthwhile for them to do. So anyway, we'll just continue on here though. He also told Road and Track they have plans to introduce something new quite frequently. Otherwise, a car can lose interest. So, lots of special editions. And so I think maybe part of the suggestion was maybe we'll bring the manual as a special edition version or something like that. If it's a little more expensive or harder to make, then they would do that here in the States and elsewhere, which, again, is also encouraging. But also, if all they're going to do for special editions is what they've done for the BRZ and the 86, which is, let's put a new stripe package on it. And, let's, give it better handling, which no one asked for, and keep the same slow horsepower. If it's those types of special editions, that's not going to hold interest in the car. No one's buying BRZs or 86s anymore on the new market for that very reason. So that line of thinking doesn't work. It hasn't translated to sales, I don't think. But They're saying they want to do higher performing versions, it sounds like. So hopefully they will actually have faster versions in addition to just better handling. Also, in another interview, Mr. Kai told CNET that Toyota and BMW haven't talked in 4 years about the Z4 and the Supra. So he's quoted here as saying, again, the assistant chief engineer supposedly says, "We agreed on the packaging, like where is the hip point of the driver, where's the wheelbase, the width, where's the fuel tank, the A-pillar, and this was all around the middle of 2014. After that, we completely separated our team. After that, no communication with each other." Which I also think is very puzzling to hear, considering all the Supra spy photos that we saw, almost all of them in the past 3 years or however long it's been, they've almost always been photographed with the Z4 and the Supra together. They've always been side by side. They've been out in the snowy areas, one right behind the other. And so whoever was driving all those development mules for the past 3 years or whatever, they were driving both the Z4 and the Supra, and you can't tell me that they didn't stop to get lunch together. They didn't stop to talk. They might just be drivers. They might not be the engineers or something. But at some point, you had to have the engineers working on these cars and riding and driving in them as well. So again, we have evidence that says otherwise. So not sure what's up with all these claims. But again, this is coming straight from the assistant chief engineer. So I don't know what's going on. I'm all just very, very confused. But anyway, so lastly, back to the Road and Track interview here. Kai has also said, we want to have Celica back. We want to have the MR2 back. The biggest was Supra. Supra was number one, the biggest demand from the market. Then he added here that now we've brought Supra back, but what comes next depends on the market needs. And so in the interview here, he alluded to the possibility of there possibly being an all-wheel drive Celica coming back, which would be cool, and also a possibility of a new mid-engined MR2. But he said it could also be a completely different model. We'll have to wait and see. So supposedly there's no solid plans, there's no partnerships, at least nothing that's been announced. So, if you use the Supra timetable as any indication, you won't see any kind of new Celica or MR2 for another 5 to 7 years easy. So, nothing to get excited about just yet. And also considering all these other conflicting reports we're hearing from, all these high up executives, I don't know who to believe or what to believe at this point. So I would not, put any weight in that. But anyway, for something that I think is a little more solid, the last Toyota story this week is a report by Bloomberg here saying that they have some sources that have said that Toyota has agreed on an agreement. They've come to an agreement with Android to have Android Auto in Toyota models. So previously they just started rolling out Apple CarPlay, the new Corolla hatchback, the Avalon, those are starting to get the Apple CarPlay, and more, we'll get those soon. But Android Auto, it sounds like they said they could have an announcement as soon as next month officially about that. But that'd be great for Android users. It's great to have both functionalities there. And so hopefully Toyota joins all the other companies that have already done that very soon. And we have a story from BMW this week. After the leaked image last week that was posted of the new front end of the new 3 Series, BMW has released this teaser video of the car in production before its debut at the Paris Motor Show next week. So we can't see much in this teaser video, but we just get quick glimpses there of the seats and the sides of the vehicle and the hood and a couple other things. But we hope to have all the details next week at the reveal in Paris. So very exciting that we'll have the full reveal here in about a week. Other things here BMW related is the 4 Series Convertible was spied as well, thanks to spy photographer Brian Williams. And it looks like it's going to be ditching its retractable hardtop, much like the Z4, and go for a soft top here for the new 4 Series. But supposedly this might not get revealed until sometime later on next year. They might kind of delay their rollout a little bit, but interesting to see the spy photos there nonetheless. Hyundai has revealed the i30 Fastback N this week. This is a fastback version of the i30, which is the Elantra GT here, but we don't get the N version, of course. They already have the regular i30N over in Europe and the UK and stuff, and so this fastback version is a body style we don't get as well, so none of this is coming to us here. It looks like a little coupe SUV to me, though, like all those coupe SUVs they are coming out with. Looks similar to that, but The shape seems a little more agreeable on a regular car than it does on an SUV. But anyway, the same mechanicals apply here as the i30N and even the Veloster N, which is the one we do get here, meaning it's going to have a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder with 246 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque in the base version. Then you can go for the performance package, which gives you 271 horsepower. Here in the States, that's rated at 275 for the Veloster N. But with an overboost function, you get 279 pound-feet of torque temporarily. 0 to 60 is 6.4 seconds for that slower version of the Fastback there, and then the 6.1 second 0 to 60 for the performance package version of that Fastback. And anyway, that'll be debuting in Paris next week as well. Another faster Korean car that was spied this past week was the Forte GT. They're claiming it's going to be a GT now. So, previously the faster Forte was the SX, but the GT I think would kind of fit with the Stinger GT, and that being the faster version. So that's the rumor. That's not confirmed, but Forte GT is kind of the name that's going around right now. But this will be a sportier version, of course, use the same 1.6 liter turbo with 201 horsepower as every other, Kia and Hyundai with this engine. Looks like it's still fairly mild as far as the exterior stuff goes. It does have the dual exhaust there, and camo's most likely hiding a slightly more aggressive front bumper and some type of spoiler there in the back most likely. But anyway, cool to see that, and that could be revealed as soon as the LA Auto Show here in November. Volvo has revealed the 2019 V60 Cross Country, which is a lifted version of the V60 wagon we already saw a few months ago. So this one, it's got 3 inches higher than a regular wagon. It's got the more aggressive plastic body cladding on it. It's got all-wheel drive with a 2-liter turbo engine, same as the regular V60. But mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid versions will almost certainly be coming, since Volvo's seriously pushing hard into all the EV stuff very quickly. But anyway, back to the cross-country version here. It has an off-road mode, hill descent control, and like I said, it looks a little more rugged to go along with the slightly more capable off-road ability of this cross-country version. But I actually really like the look of this. I think it'll be a great competitor also for the Regal Touareg and the Subaru Outback and stuff, a little more luxurious, of course, but still really great to see that. The interior is about the same as any other Volvo V60, but looks good as well, so no complaints there. Ram this week has revealed a new trim level for the 1500 Rebel here. So this is called the Rebel 12, and it's named after the 12-inch infotainment screen. Other Ram 1500s have had that screen available, but it wasn't on the Rebel version. The Rebel was a little more stripped down before, and so now they're offering all the goodies on the Rebel for those who want the lifted, more off-road ready Ram, but also want the luxury, much like many Raptor buyers and stuff like that. So anyway, this Rebel 12 version, it's about $3,000 more than a regular Rebel, but that gives you more than just that big screen. You also get the 900-watt Harman Kardon stereo with the metal speaker grills, leather seats that are heated in the front, and a couple other small things. But I think for $3,000 more, that's not bad, actually. The starting price now with this package is $48,685, including destination, but that's still only for the rear-wheel drive V6 version. So whenever you add the Hemi V8 and four-wheel drive, you'll probably be well over 50. So anyway, these are going to be available at the end of the year, and so cool to see that. Something really crazy here. Hennessey has revealed their modified Silverado this week that they're calling the Goliath 6x6. And as you can clearly see, it's based on a 2019 Silverado Trail Boss, but it has a 2.9-liter supercharger on top of that 6.2-liter V8. And so they say it does 705 horsepower now, 675 pound-feet of torque, and that's while it's running 7 psi of boost. A larger engine is also available for 808 horsepower if the 705 isn't enough for you. But even with the 705, Hennessey says 0 to 60 is in the mid 4-second range for this huge 6x6 truck. Crazy. Other things as far as the suspension, it's got, of course, the additional axle for 6x6. It has an 8-inch lift as well, and an all-new rear suspension, of course, to go along with that. It also has a longer bed to cover that, of course. 20-inch wheels with 37-inch tires. They're only making 24 of these things, though, and they're going to cost $375,000. Considering, like the Mercedes G-Wagon, 6x6 was like $1 million or something, I guess this is reasonable. But yeah, so anyway, and that price, by the way, the $375 includes the donor Silverado, so you don't have to pay extra for that. But still, that is that's pricey. And anyway, they're saying these are going to be available for export as well, because most likely a lot of the Middle Eastern guys like the 6x6 thing, and for the sand function and whatnot. So they said you can export these, and at that price, $375, that'll be nothing for those guys. And so anyway, cool to see that, and that'll be quite a sight to see rolling down the streets. For some official Chevy news here this week, they revealed pricing for the 2019 Blazer. Kind of. They only released the base price, and that's it. It's going to be starting at just under $30,000 at $29,995. But that's for a base L trim with a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine and front-wheel drive. Whenever you add the V6 or all-wheel drive, those will most certainly be well into the 30s, probably even close to 40 in some of the trims, maybe even over 40. But this base trim, it does come fairly well equipped. They say it has an 8-inch touchscreen, dual-zone climate control, and keyless entry is standard. But yeah, they haven't announced any kind of additional pricing for the higher trim levels or the all-wheel drive or the V6 or anything, so we only know the base price, and it's a little higher than I was hoping, but it does kind of undercut some of the other stuff like the Ford Edge and the Nissan Murano, and I guess that's what they're saying is the competition for this, although those seem a little bit bigger, but I haven't seen a Blazer in person. But anyway, these are going to be on sale in January though, and I'm sure we'll have more of the additional pricing info pretty soon as well. But anyway, interesting to hear that. Some other GM news here is that the refreshed GMC Acadia was spied for the first time, and you can clearly see its brand new front grille there it's going to have, along with some more aggressive headlights, which even through the camo there looks pretty mean. I gotta say, that's going to be a really nice refresh. Out back, it'll probably get revised taillights and bumper, although again, that's mostly covered up here on this prototype. The debut for this could be early next year. It sounds, something like this would make sense to reveal either the Detroit or Chicago auto shows early next year, and that's most likely where I'm guessing we'll see this. But anyway, cool to see that spied. And while Volkswagen is killing the Beetle, that was announced a couple of weeks ago here, Fiat is reintroducing the 1957 edition of the Fiat 500 here, again for the 2019 model year. So this was previously offered in 2016, and is this retro edition that includes, some of the old Fiat logos, obviously the more fun colors you can get there. It has body painted wheels, white mirrors and roof, and a slightly different front fascia. The interior also has some unique colors as well, but they didn't share any pictures of that, unfortunately. But it's cool, I'm glad they're, anything retro I'm all about. And so if you're sad the Beetle's dying and, you can't snag one in the next year, this is a great alternative as well, especially with these bright colors and stuff. But anyway, it's only $995 more than a regular Fiat 500 as well. They're going to be available this fall, so cool to see that. Speaking of Volkswagen though, the CC replacement, the Arteon, has been delayed here in America, but for a strange reason. Supposedly it's going to be on sale very soon, but Volkswagen's now saying it won't arrive in dealers until early 2019. Europe's had this thing for at least a year now. And they say the delay, though, was due to emission certification over in Europe. It's the WLTP testing, which is the new global thing, but it has nothing to do with American emission testing. So I don't know, why this is being held up in the States. And if anything, it should be held up in Europe, where it's already been on sale for a year. So this is completely backwards. Another strange statement from an automaker. I don't know what's going on with that. But unfortunately, if you were excited for the Arteon, you're going to have to keep waiting a little bit longer here. In some other Volkswagen-related news, Engadget is reporting here that Lucid Motors, they revealed the Air last year. They've made a deal to use Volkswagen's Electrify America network, their whole charging network here, for their first car, the Air, whenever that goes on sale in 2020 is when they're supposed to start being built. But anyway, this is going to give Lucid the ability to, have this huge charging network of over 2,000 locations is what they're claiming in the States here, without having to build their own infrastructure, which is a really smart move. And anyway, they also recently got $1 billion in funding from a Saudi Arabian firm as well, to help with their bills of developing this Lucid Air, which I think is a really cool EV, and I think this whole thing has a lot more promise than Faraday Future, which seems to be having all kinds of issues and things that are holding them up. So I would bet on Lucid being the true Tesla competitor to come out of all this here in the next few years, and sounds like they got a great charging network to go off of already. So anyway, cool to see that. Some other electric vehicle news here is that Audi has announced that they won't let dealers order stock for the new e-Tron SUV that was just revealed last week. The all-EV SUV. If you missed last week's update, you can get all the info on the e-Tron here. But anyway, they're taking pre-orders. They're $1,000 deposits you put down, then you can order one. But that's the only way you can get an e-Tron. They said there won't be any kind of dealer allocations or dealers ordering them. You just walk in, and if you want one, they will deliver one to that dealer for you, and that's it. There isn't any kind of pecking order like there is with other, vehicles where it's like, oh, like with the Bullet, they're like, oh, we're only getting 4 of these. And, it's like the manufacturer graciously gives the dealers a few cars to sell. This isn't the case with this. You can walk in and order one and it's done and over with instead of having to, play a bunch of games. So anyway, that's great to hear. Although it might be a little tricky for dealers that are used to, having dealer stock and stuff for people to look at. I'm sure they'll have a demo unit or something, but otherwise, you're going to have to just pre-order one and wait. So anyway, interesting to hear that. Other Audi news here is there's a rumor that they might be bringing back an old historic name to be a fighter to Maybach. So Automotive News is reporting they're thinking about bringing back the Horch name, Horch. And so it was a luxury car in the early 1900s, and it was actually one of the 4 brands that formed Auto Union, which is what the 4 rings stand for in the Audi. They were one of those rings. So it does have a very strong historical basis, although no one remembers the Horch name. I'd never even heard of it, honestly, and I feel like I'm pretty into cars. I'd never heard of it before. But anyway, so they're going to have this as like a higher trim level, kind of like how Maybach is now for Mercedes. It won't be a standalone brand or anything. They don't want to step on Bentley's toes at all, I'm sure. So this will just be something, to kind of have an elevated step up. They're saying first with the A8. This will probably be a few more years before they actually start doing this, but probably will be attached to the A8 as a higher trim level, more luxurious, maybe a little longer or something, but won't be any kind of unique body styles. And I'm sure they'll probably put it on, the SUVs and stuff in the future. But again, they just want to compete with Maybach, and they currently can't do that. They'll just tell people, well, go buy a Bentley, and that's a lot more expensive. So this certainly makes sense, but this isn't confirmed yet, though. Just something that Automotive News is reporting here. Some official announcements here, though. Porsche has officially announced that they would like their future to be diesel-free and that they won't be offering diesels in any markets at all anymore. Before it was like America, and they're kind of like, we don't know about the rest, and now they're officially killing all diesels at Porsche. So the CEO did clarify that Porsche is not demonizing diesel. It is and will remain an important propulsion technology. We, as a sports car manufacturer, however, for whom diesels have always played a secondary role, have come to the conclusion that we would like our future to be diesel-free. Not only would they like it to be diesel-free, though, which is already a crazy enough theory on its own, but they're also, it sounds like, going towards gasoline-free for the most part. So that was an official part of the story. This is unofficial, just to make a clear differentiation here. So this is a new report by German publication Manager Magazine, and they're claiming that Porsche wants all of its models to be completely electric in less than 10 years. That's the big kicker. I mean, of course, everything will probably be electric in 50 years or whatever, but Porsche wants to be really quick with this, supposedly. So they're saying they want to be completely electric in less than 10 years, except for the 911. That's the big thing. They're saying the 911 would stay gas powered, at least partially. It'll probably have some type of hybrid thing, but the 911 would keep gas and, hopefully, it'd still deliver that more raw experience while everything else goes EV. But that is really unfortunate because that means, the Cayman and Boxster would also be completely electric, as well as all the SUVs and stuff, which isn't as huge of a deal, but really would be sad for the Boxster and Cayman. But again, this part is just speculation, so, but it's not a surprise. I mean, with how much Volkswagen's been burned by the diesel thing and them wanting to just go completely electric at Volkswagen, Porsche's caught up in that as well, and they have the Taycan coming, or Taycan, however you say it, coming next year, and that's the first all-electric version of, something they're going to have, and they're going to roll this out on everything in the future, I'm sure. So not a huge stretch of the imagination. It's just the timetable. It might not be in less than 10 years. It might be a little longer than that, but it sounds like that seems to be pretty clear. That's where Porsche's going in one form or another, because they said officially that they talked to, I guess, The Drive asked Porsche for clarification about this story in this German magazine. And Porsche did say in the past that by 2025, every second or every other Porsche could have an electric drive, either hybrid or purely electric. But they also added that they're concentrating on optimized internal combustion engines as well. So we'll have to see, again, like I said, I think it's only a matter of time, but at least if they keep the 911, gasoline powered, and maybe the Boxster and Cayman, if Porsche purists put up enough of a fight, that would be cool to at least keep those gas. If all the other, commuter stuff goes electric, whatever. But anyway, we'll have to see how that pans out. Infiniti this past week has two kind of interesting things. So Infiniti announced they're discontinuing the Q50 Hybrid and won't offer it for the 2019 model year. So they now don't have a single hybrid currently offered in their lineup for the time being. That's obviously a very temporary thing, since them, like the rest of the world, is going hybrid and EV. Speaking of the hybrid stuff, though, they actually just showed a new image for the Q60 Project Black S that they're showing at the Paris Motor Show. Now, if this looks or sounds familiar, about a year and a half ago, they showed this same exact car at the Geneva 2017 Motor Show. And back then, it just didn't have those little yellow accents, but otherwise looks mostly the same. They said it would have a KERS system, and there would be that combined with the Red Sport motor to give it, some type of higher power, but they didn't give any kind of specifics. Now they're giving specifics. Hopefully we'll have more details again next week when this is fully revealed. But here's what they're saying. It'll have that F1 style KERS system and for the hybrid boost functionality, but have the same twin turbo V6 from the Red Sport. But all combined, they would do 563 horsepower, they're claiming, and a 0 to 60 time in under 4 seconds, which would be really exciting for the Q60, which is kind of languishing a bit. It's still a gorgeous and really fun coupe. I really enjoyed the one that I reviewed last year. But this could, spice it up really nicely, and it would be really cool. But anyway, hopefully we'll have more pictures and details next week, like I said, when that's revealed. And there's an exciting little rumor that's most likely going to be confirmed as being true soon about the 2019 Mazda CX-5, and that it might be getting the 2.5-liter turbo motor from the Mazda 6 and the CX-9 here for the 2019 model year. So Reddit user WNightmare187 went to a dealership in Canada where he was given a document showing changes for 2019. And so listed on this document, it claims the CX-5 is going to get substantial visual changes to the interior, a new G vectoring control plus, which I'm guessing is just a more enhanced version of the regular G vectoring, system. Also, it's going to have some usual, small adjustments as far as packaging and what stuff comes in what package. They always like switching that stuff up a little bit and fine tuning that. But it also is going to be offering Apple CarPlay and Android Auto supposedly, which is great news if so. I mean, we already have seen other Mazdas rolling it out one by one. And so this would make sense. Other things, there could be a new signature trim, supposedly, according to this document here, which again lines up with other Mazdas, no surprises. So, I mean, all this stuff, although it's not confirmed yet, I'm almost certain is true. And hopefully we'll have some type of confirmation relatively soon, especially if this is a 2019 model year vehicle. It should be very soon. But anyway, I mean, this is going to be awesome if they have this. I mean, this motor, in the CX-9 and the Mazda 6 does 250 horsepower and premium gas, 310 pound-feet of torque. I absolutely loved it in the CX-9. I loved it in the Mazda 6 I just reviewed not too long ago. And so putting that in the CX-5, I already love the CX-5. I did the regular CX-5 earlier this year. That was a blast as far as, mid-sized and smaller crossovers go. I loved that thing. It was really fun to drive, actually. So adding the turbo to this, it's basically going to be the replacement for the Forester XT. Since Subaru's dropping the ball and getting rid of the turbos, Mazda's stepping in, and they're making the fun to drive, niche crossovers that Subaru won't make anymore, because Subaru's wanting to just sell out and go for the masses, and so Mazda's going for those enthusiasts instead. And so that's probably going to be my pick as far as you want a fun crossover. You got 250 horsepower in that smaller package, great, great looks, great interior, the great versatility if you want that in an SUV, and now you have 310 pound-feet of torque. Bravo, Mazda. They're listening to their fans. They're giving the Miata more power like everyone asked for. They asked for this motor in the Mazda 6, and Mazda gave it to them. They asked for it in the CX-5. Mazda gave it to them. The way Mazda's going, they're on a roll here. Maybe we'll get a Mazda Speed 3 before not too long. That would be amazing. So Anyway, yeah, my love of Mazda continues on, so that's great to hear. Another engine rumor we have this week is from Allpar, which is a site here that's claiming to have reliable sources inside Fiat Chrysler that are claiming that FCA is working on a new inline 6 engine, a turbocharged one, of course. This would replace the Pentastar V6 that's currently, in everything, basically at FCA. It would be great as it could take the Wrangler back to its roots of having an inline 6 engine. And, it could also be used, of course, in other things like the Cherokee and whatnot. And actually has a few other possibilities because, we've seen, Mercedes and BMW are going to inline 6 turbos as well. And so this could make for a really logical inclusion, if it can go in something like the Stelvio and the Giulia as well, to be kind of like a mid-level engine to compete. So, with the Giulia, for example, you have the normal one with a 2-liter turbo, and then you have the Quadrifoglio with 505 horsepower. There's nothing in the middle there. And so I think this would be perfect. You have this engine here, you give it some kind of horsepower in between the 280 of the regular Giulia and the 505 of the Quad, and you're set. So that would be really great as far as that goes. There also are rumors about the Giulia and stuff getting some type of hybrid boost to give it higher horsepower as well. But anyway, back to this engine here. Some other details about it is that it's going to be a variation, supposedly, on the 4-cylinder GME motor, which, again, is the one currently used in the Wrangler, Cherokee, Stelvio, and Giulia. Obviously, they're a little tweaked for each of those applications. But anyway, the 6-cylinder version would be less than 3 liters to avoid the European taxes on larger engines. But it would be turbo and could be very stout still. If it's a 2.9-liter inline 6 motor, like the 2.9-liter in the Audi RS5, that does 450 horsepower. So, you could have that type of power out of this, put that in a Giulia, and even having that in a Wrangler or something would be sweet. So we'll have to see. But could make, like I said, for a really nice middle ground for a lot of those models, and also be more fuel efficient as well, I'm sure. So cool to see that. A quick little other thing here, speaking of Mercedes here, is their parent company Daimler just appointed a new CEO this week, who was previously the head of R&D at Daimler there. And I'm going to butcher this, but his name is Ola Kaellenius, maybe. Anyway, he's the first non-German and non-engineer to run the company. But previously, they've either been Germans or engineers or both. This guy is neither. And anyway, he's going to be replacing Dieter Zech. I've also constantly butchered that name. And he's the guy with the infamous mustache. He always reminds me of the Monopoly guy. Yeah. So anyway, that's cool to see. Some other Mercedes news here is that according to Automotive News, the 2019 GLC will now be imported from their factory in India instead of their factory in Germany. And they're saying this change is happening immediately, with actually the first deliveries arriving next month from India. So this is likely a result of the tariffs going on, where the US is threatening Germany with all these tariffs. And so Mercedes says, okay, well, if you're going to give us these tariffs for German-built vehicles, we already have a factory in India. We'll just get them from there instead. Bye. And that's what they're doing here. And so they're going to have this. Now, they're saying the 2019 GLC, and there's even been advertisements for the 2019 GLC, and that looks like the current gen GLC. There is a refresh that's supposed to be coming very soon. I was assuming that'll be a 2020 model year, so I don't know if this report's talking about that vehicle or the current existing GLCs. But anyway, it's big news. They're bringing a vehicle from India, because Mercedes, although they have built other stuff in India, we've never gotten those models in the States. And so this is the first India-built Mercedes that's coming to the States here, and it's also their top-selling crossover here at Mercedes, the GLC. So a little bit of a risk there, but I don't think anyone's going to be worried about the quality or anything, and should be just as good. But anyway, interesting to hear that. Last two stories this week here are about supercars, and the first here is Lamborghini was spied testing a refresh for the Huracan Spyder. There's only a couple pictures here, but it looks to have Performante-inspired styling, but not quite as dramatic, just toned down a tiny bit. Obviously, it doesn't have the active aero or anything, but you can see the front bumper does look very similar to the Performante there, and on the side, you can see it's got a new, the scoop that's been there in the lower part of the rocker panel there now has a little splitter in front of it, and that's really the only change there. The wheels, of course, are probably going to be different and things like that, but out back, it looks like it has a little more complexity there to that rear bumper, which is what they always do with the refresh. They did the same thing for the Gallardo, and I feel like they kind of tweaked the Gallardo a little more than they should have and got a little weird towards the end. But hopefully the Huracan doesn't have the same fate, and this actually looks good here. And mechanically, it's all still a little muddy as far as what exactly they're going to do to the Huracan. just for this little refresh until an all-new version comes. They're saying there's rumors it could get the rear-wheel steering system from the Aventador S, which I think that is available on the R8, so that's not, a wild stretch to assume that. It's also rumored it could possibly be getting a 48-volt mild hybrid system. That's a little more of a stretch, but they said that could allow for a little more flexibility as far as, all the electronics in the vehicle and the suspension and stuff like that. But anyway, it's still going to be running the 5.2 liter V10. No worries there. And this could be shown as soon as the LA Auto Show in November. That seems really likely considering the market for this vehicle, especially the Spyder version here, or the Geneva Motor Show next year. So again, that would maybe make it a little bit longer of a wait. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, cool to see that. The last story this week is Auto Guide is reporting here that the McLaren 600 LT is going to be getting a Spyder version as soon as the 2019 model year. So, according to a document that was submitted to the California Air Resources Board, it lists all the McLaren vehicles that McLaren wants to, register for emissions and stuff for 2019, and the 600 LT Spyder is listed on there. So that means it's coming very soon, which is strange. So, I mean, that basically means it's a done deal. It's about as close to a confirmation as you can get without it being official. But McLaren has said that it won't be at the Paris or LA Auto shows. So if it's a 2019 model year vehicle, that means it's going to have to be on sale by, the middle of next year at the latest. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they will wait till Geneva and then be like, hey, by the way, you can buy these tomorrow or something. I don't know. But it seems kind of weird they would not show it at LA again, or, Paris, one or the other. But yeah, apparently not, according to McLaren. And anyway, interesting to see that. So, but anyway, cool to see, a Spyder version of the 600 LT. That's going to be amazing. Yeah. So anyway, let me know your thoughts and everything in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next week. Take care.